Well, hello there, folks. How are we doing today? Hopefully, you're all doing absolutely peachy keen, fantastic, lovey. Uh, this is going to be another cat talk. We're continuing our spiritual playthrough of Elden Rang. Elden Rang? Wrong of Elden? And I've been thinking about a lot of different things. So last week I was talking about meditation and how meditation can really help you focus your mind and can really help you uh, be more positive and a variety of other things. And I was thinking about like the positivity aspect of it, and something that's occurred to me, and this is partially just a result of me spending so much time on things like Warhammer and things like that, is that sometimes I complain a lot in my personal life, and I like not like about like events happening, but like I'll sit there like where's this little Warhammer. I'll just sit there and be talking about a character and be like, "Oh man, this character's dumb. Can you believe how dumb this is?" And I've been trying more and more to just stop myself from doing that. Like when I start, if I find myself starting to be like kind of negative, especially about if it's a topic that's very silly, because there's a lot of topics out there that are really pretty irrelevant in terms of like uh the things that they like are about. Like I think that there is a good deal to say about the way like it's kind of interesting to me because in my own life I find that it is very easy if something is going bad and it is actually, like affecting things and it is actually like experience of suffering and things like that. It is very easy for me to just go back to the present moment and relax and get through it, or just kind of smile at the suffering and or anything like that. It's actually very easy. It's kind of funny to me that then for something that I supposedly enjoy, which I do enjoy Warhammer quite a bit, and a lot of other nerdy things, that I'll sit there and get so frustrated with them sometimes, and I'll sit there and just like really kind of dissect uh things about it, and it's very interesting to me that the more I have gotten into these things, the more I feel like like as an example, I'm going to say, and I think I have a video that's I think it's gonna come out this week, where I was talking about how like even though I really enjoy Warhammer, ooh, yeah, we might be in for a bit of a fight. Because that my friend here is not doing very much damage to the. I must have just wanted to distract us. That's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I think I need to upgrade him or something. That it's not really that great to sit there and like focus on. I've spent probably too much time reading too much Warhammer material that I think has maybe, especially in like such a short time frame, the amount of books I was reading on the Horus Heresy was just kind of making it like so I wasn't enjoying it that much, and I realized I need to take a break. And what I realized is that it can be very easy to be negative, especially about certain things in life. And I really think that what's a good practice for all of us is to try and get... Oh, there you go. You got me. That's a weird cloak. I guess it's made of skin, though, so, whatever. But we really should try to be more positive, and really should, embrace that positivity, because it can make practice a lot easier, too. It can make just, existing and just being there and trying to connect to God, it makes it a lot easier. If you're sitting there and you're full of hate, even if it's just for something silly like Warhammer, which I don't hate Warhammer, but sometimes the amount I complain about it would make you maybe believe otherwise. But this person's name is Istvan. Clearly they need to be smacketed, because who would name their kid Istvan? It's a terrible place. So much death and shooting. But what I was thinking about was the idea that we can cling on to negativity, and it can be especially easy in some situations to cling on to negativity, kind of like despite what is going on around us. And sometimes it's easier to just like sit there and focus on the negative rather than, being positive. And that's why I'm making it a vow, not just this year, because I was going to say not like a New Year's resolution, but, I am making it a vow that I'm going to attempt to be just more positive in all things this year. And I do have a video coming out, like I said, where I'm kind of complaining about like Warhammer and how it's kind of been annoying me more the longer I've spent time reading these books, and the more I've been sitting there thinking about it and stuff like that. And I realized that, I was spending too much time on stuff that I wasn't enjoying. And part of it was for the channel. I wanted to make a video, and then I realized afterwards that, I enjoyed making the video and stuff, but then as soon as I was done, I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with this. I got to my 40th book in the Horus Heresy competitive multi... Oh. I got to a certain level within it, and I realized that I didn't really need to do more, and that I should be spending more time, specifically more time dedicated to God and doing, good things. God doesn't want you to just sit there and just be miserable, especially over silly things. So I think we should try just in general to just be more positive. And I know for some people it's like, well, I don't know how do I do that? And I do think that like last week when we talked about like being in the present moment, like the present moment is this wonderful moment, and it's like the only moment that's truly available to us and things like that. Oh, I can summon the guy. Okay. Oh, I'm invading his world. This feels like it kind of goes against the whole thing I was just talking about, it being like more positive. But I'll give it a... Oh. Oh, wow. This gentleman seems like he might be a bit more difficult to... Oh, wow. Yeah. I was not doing very much damage to him. I think I need to do a couple of things about that. And then maybe we'll come back. I've never done that before. And now we really need to try and like let ourselves not get too deep into like, especially like negativity, and not just, like, oh man, things suck. Because, sometimes it makes sense to be like, oh man, things suck a little bit in whatever you're doing. But there's also plenty of times when it's like, it makes much more sense to try and be happy with what's going on, and understanding that sometimes, yes, things aren't going exactly the way we would like them to, and things like that. But that doesn't mean that we can't still try to enjoy the good things that are happening. And what we really need to try and do is not let the negativity like affect our worship too much, because it really does become a problem if you're sitting there and you're very negative, and you're just sitting there and you're just like focusing way too much on something silly. It can really distract during prayer, and it's like you're trying to connect to God, you're trying to get this deeper connection. So sometimes what ends up happening though is that people will get a little too invested in a particularly like a negative part of whatever it is they're doing, and they'll just not really know what to do to get out of the negativity. Sometimes it gets difficult to like if you focus too much on the negativity, sometimes it can get very difficult to actually be able to just like focus on the prayer and focus on doing the right thing. And it's another thing that we will often, if we're not careful... Oh. Jeez Louise, my dude. It can often become very easy to get focused on things that you don't want to be focused on, and like, thoughts will come kind of regardless. You don't necessarily have like pure control over your mind to like the things that will pop into your head and all this other stuff. But that doesn't mean that you can't, understand when like maybe you're focused too much on like negative stuff. Like, because another thing I was thinking about is that I like horror movies, but sometimes they leave you feeling bad, and sometimes like afterwards you're like, oh, I don't know, like for I try not to watch horror movies that are not like I like spooky movies and stuff like that, but there are some that are just like so negative and just so like they kind of encourage like not very good thoughts, and like there are things that can make it a lot more. I didn't realize that was a range thing. Man, maybe I need to level up my health and stuff a bit more. It seems like I'm getting one shot by a lot of things. But if you like, I do still like a lot of spooky movies, and I like some horror movies and some zombie movies and things like that. But if you, I think that while you can definitely consume that stuff without having like a permanent negative effect. I think if you spend a lot of time with those sorts of activities and spend a lot of time kind of focused on that sort of stuff, I think it can get to you, and I think it can be a more negative rather than positive experience and things like that. And I think that sometimes if we spend too much time engaged in that sort of thing, it can really kind of burn us out and like bring us down and make it so that we have a much harder time focusing on the good things in life. So I would just recommend that maybe we, try to occasionally, sit there, think about why we're doing what we're doing, and really kind of try to reorient yourself. And, I can think of several instances where I've done silly things related to this. One is, for instance, I was spending a lot of time playing the Warhammer tabletop game, but I wasn't having like a tremendous amount of fun, and I realized that I had spent a lot of time playing it, but I just wasn't really enjoying myself very much. So I just decided that it made sense to just sort of take a break and, try. And it was partially a thing where I have this habit of getting like really engaged in certain habits. Like basically I'm kind of stubborn, and I'll just like spend too much time on a particular thing. And sometimes it turns into a thing where like with like a Souls game where I'll spend more time focusing on it because like I'm having difficulty with a certain boss or something, and I really want to beat it, I really want to beat a particular boss, or I really want to beat a particular monster or something like that, and I'm having a hard time with it, and I'll just go back to it and do it over and over again, but it can be frustrating. So I think we all need to know our limits and understand that, like, although it's not like, God's going to abandon you because you had a negative moment or anything like that, but it is good to occasionally reflect on why we're doing what we're doing, and what do we intend out of like what we're doing, and is it helping us on the spiritual path? Sometimes you just need to take a moment and go, is this helping me? If you like alcohol, like having a drink every now and again isn't necessarily going to like damn you, obviously, but if you find that you're drinking a lot, or it's like interfering with things or things like that, it's like sometimes you need to go like, okay, I have to take a step back. It's the same thing with like video games. Like video games are nice and video games are fun, and I greatly enjoy playing a lot of different video games. But at the same time, if you're playing video games to the exclusion of doing anything else that could actually like help you in like whatever situation you're doing, that sometimes you're gonna just need to take a moment to and to get away from like some of the things that are like more negative or things that are like dragging you down. It's like if you want spiritual progress, for instance, one of the things it does take time. It takes time and dedication to whatever it is you're doing, and it takes time to, you know, set aside, you gotta set aside time for the practices, and you gotta set aside time to be able to make sure you're doing things right. Some things take supplies, like for instance, puja takes a little bit more time and takes some supplies. You want the candles and things like that. Sometimes it means that you should be going to your church if you haven't been for a while, and you should make sure that you're doing the practices that help you, especially on your spiritual path. And you should, and you know, sometimes it can also be more difficult because you're gonna maybe you're gonna realize that there's a person you like. Okay, I can't seem to hit this person while I'm on this. Oh, jeez. There's a lot of guys there. Sometimes you're gonna need to take a step back. Like sometimes people are like a negative influence in your life, and that doesn't necessarily mean that like everyone's bad. And if you feel like if you feel like being around them is not helping your spiritual path, sometimes it's also an opportunity to like kind of investigate your own activity and behavior and why you think, is it the person, or is it the way you interact with the person? Is it something, you know, more complicated? Is it, or you know, we also have to be careful because is it actually the person, or maybe it's just, you know, me, you know, like maybe it's just the person, maybe it's just you doing the activity, like maybe because, you know, maybe some people, for instance, like with the Warhammer thing, I wasn't having fun because I was playing way too many games in a short period of time, sometimes with not enough rest, so it wasn't even like I was really enjoying it. And sometimes I was just throwing together armies just to try them out. And you know, that's a part of it, is like habits. We have to be careful with our habits. Sometimes we have to kind of sit there and really consider, you know, like breaking habits can be difficult, but it's also a good thing to at least occasionally investigate, like, you know, if you have a particular habit, why do you have that habit? Is it a habit that you can get away from? You know, is it just something that maybe you can still do occasionally but just need to cut back on a bit? And there are, you know, different levels of how bad certain habits can be. Not everything is going to be like, you know, the be all end all forever negative type thing. Sometimes it's just the way you're interacting with things. But I really did want to encourage everybody, and you know, especially around this time of year, because it's going to be New Year's here, and everybody makes these New Year's resolutions, and I'm not super big on the idea of making New Year's resolutions because I don't like. There's something about New Year's resolution that feels, at least to me, particularly easy to ignore. So I guess I'm more interested in the idea of like, you know, it's just like it feels like a good time to do things, but not. And I guess it would still be a New Year's resolution, be like, I'm going to be different and I'm going to change things. But I would really, either way, I would encourage everybody to kind of look at their activities and look at like, where are they being negative? Where is that negativity coming from? And trying to be more positive. Sometimes it can be as simple as just spending a little bit more time in meditation, or you know, like spending a little bit more time dwelling on like the gospel, or you know, like scripture or something like that. It's not necessarily always just it's not necessarily always just like completely stopping everything you're doing, because a lot of us also have lives, you know, like sometimes it's like, oh man, being at work makes me negative. Well, you're probably not going to just, you know, quit working because, you know, you have a job that you're not very happy with right this moment. And you probably shouldn't do that. You should probably find healthy outlets and things like that to try and change what's bothering you and try to focus on things that are bothering you and make it so that you can still exist. And because sometimes you can't avoid the things that are bothering you. I know some people who, for instance, have family members that are just particularly difficult to deal with. They're just very negative and they just want to drag things down. Does that mean that you just stop talking to that person altogether? No, but you try to make sure that A, if they're being negative, it doesn't like, ruin everything you're going for, and it doesn't make it so that, you can't be positive. And sometimes it's very difficult to be positive if people are like acting against what you're saying, just like deliberately. But that's why we gotta make those difficult choices sometimes, that we gotta figure out what we want, what we really want out of our spiritual practice, what we really want out of life. And sometimes you just have to be willing to just be like, no, I'm sorry, I can't engage with you like this because it's just bad. It's just not helping me. And sometimes it's like, it's okay to be a little selfish and be willing to do things for yourself. And it's okay to have moments where you're like, I'm not strong enough to deal with this, or to like deal with the negativity of this person. I'm not strong enough to just let it go. So sometimes you got to be like, okay, look, I'm sorry, but if this is really how it's going to be, I might just need to get away from you for a little bit. And it's like, that sucks. And in some cases, you don't necessarily have to, tell people that like that. It could, it'll kind of depend on the person, of course, but you'll find different ways to interact with you. And believe me when I say that you have the strength in you to overcome your negative habits and to be better. Like, one of the biggest reasons I made this channel is because I wanted to talk about spirituality, and I just wanted to be better in general. And I found that it's helped a lot to just be like focused on these things. And I find that it's very helpful to see where your focus goes, and sometimes it's like, it's just a simple matter of like, with the present moment thing. That's like a very powerful practice in Buddhism, and I really like Thich Nhat Hanh's presentation of it. But sometimes things are negative, and sometimes you just need to take the time to deal with those negativities in your life and try to figure out, how much can you get away from, how much can you change. And don't worry about changing everything at once, of course. You don't need to be like, okay, I decided that I want to be more positive, so now literally anything that I was ever negative about, I need to stop forever. That's not how this works. Kaizen, man, little improvements at the time, little improvements over time. Like, just try to be a little bit better and a little bit more positive each day. And you can be amazed at how big of a difference it can make in your life, and how big of a difference it can make to people around you. And if you're finding that maybe you want to have more friends, for instance, it turns out if you're being negative all the time, it's not the greatest way to do it. And we should all try to look for our flaws, and remember that God loves us regardless, and God is willing to give us a hand regardless. So sometimes it's also just as simple as, Lord, I need some help. Please, help me. And you'll be amazed how quickly God can answer prayers sometimes. And, that's part of the reason I love the Divine Mother is, Swami Vivekananda talked about how she quickly answers prayers. And I really found that when I pray and ask her for help, and when I pray like, hey, I'm being negative, can you help me? She'll come, and it's kind of amazing how quickly. And it gets kind of crazy to be like, to talk to people, and they'll be like, hey man, what do you mean God came to help you out when you're being negative? I'm like, that's what happened. I don't know what else to tell you. She like waved the hand over me, and boop, boop, it was gone. But anyway, I just wanted to get that out there, and I think that we should all try to be more positive, and we should all try to make our lives better. We should all find the best ways to deal with our suffering and the ways to transcend it. Okay. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed that video, and I hope that you all have an absolutely wonderful day. And I love you. God loves you. Have a great one. I'm gonna run around and gather some more souls so I can level up a little bit and do some things because I think I might need to upgrade some equipment and things, but I'm not necessarily gonna have you guys just watch me run around and gather materials. Anyway, I love you. God loves you. Bye bye. Have a great day.